A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you,
O Lord. When the angels went away from them to heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go then to Bethlehem to see this thing that has taken place, which the Lord has made known to us." And so they went in haste and found Mary and Joseph and the infant lying in the manger. When they saw this, they made known the message that had been told them about this child. All who heard it were amazed by what had been told them by the shepherds. And Mary kept all these things, reflecting on them in her heart. Then the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had seen and heard, just as it had been told to them. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I went to the dry cleaners last month, and the Greek woman who owns the place, she's always sitting at the sewing machine, and she looked up over the counter and said, "Good morning, Father Patrick." And I finally asked her, "How do you know I'm a priest?" And she gave me this look. She said, "Look at your dry cleaning. Everything you bring in here, black jackets, black pants, black shirts. Of course you're a priest. And you're always smiling." I was wearing a mask. "You're always smiling, so I know you're not wearing black just because you're sad." Well, earlier this week, I went in and she was hemming a pair of pants, and I looked over the counter and I said, "Merry Christmas." And she stood up from the sewing machine and she was looking upset. She said, "This won't be the same this Christmas. Nobody says Merry Christmas anymore. We can't gather. People are staying away from churches." And her glasses began to fog up. For some reason, I thought this would be a good time to ask her another important question that I've been meaning to ask her. I said, "I've been meaning to ask you, what is your name?" And she said, "Zoe." Zoe, which means life. She said, like the life that the Blessed Mother gave to the baby Jesus. That's life. As Frank Sinatra sang, "That's life." That's what all the people say. And if you're like me, you've probably said, "That's life," or some version of that I can't repeat in this sacred space, especially on Christmas morning, at some point this year, or many times this year. That's life. But that's not how Zoe said it. That's life. Just like the way the Blessed Mother gave life to the baby Jesus. And that's the life we celebrate today. We know the Christmas story very well. We know about the long journey to Bethlehem to be enrolled in the census. We know about this newlywed couple, one of them being very, very pregnant. We know about that long journey. That's life. We know about no room at the inn. That's life. The stable with all the animals. That's life. In the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius Loyola, one of the contemplations is based on today's gospel. And we know about the shepherds and the angels and Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus. But St. Ignatius adds another character to the story. You. Imagine, he wrote, that you are a servant, and ponder how you might serve the Holy Family on this quiet night. Imagine on this dark night how you might serve the young family. What would your role be? Sometimes it's easier to imagine others in the scene. Maybe we can imagine our family members in the scene. I think of my niece, Natalie, perfect name for today. Natalie is she's in nursing school at Fairfield. I imagine that Natalie would be a loving nurse to Mary on that cold night. My brother-in-law, Steve, is a great conversationalist. And what I mean by that is that he's a very good listener in our family of all talkers. I imagine that Steve would go up to St. Joseph and say, "Hey, how's everything going?" And Joseph being the quiet man that we know him to be, saying, "Good." And then Steve saying, "Hey, how are you?" And Joseph saying, "Not bad." Then Steve saying, "That's good. How's everything?" And then Joseph, realizing that he has a friend to be able to share how everything's been going, might share with him what the journey's been like. Have they been up and down and over and out, trying to find a place to stay? How that there was no room at the inn, and how it's been kind of a crazy year since March. Sound familiar? Since March, when he heard in a dream from an angel that his betrothed was going to give birth to a baby. And then when he heard the news from Mary herself. When I prayed with this passage, using my imagination, I imagined that I was working for the innkeeper and that I was sweeping the hallway as the innkeeper answered the door to Joseph and Mary. I remember seeing the innkeeper saying to this young couple, "All I have is the stable for you." And then I was thinking to myself, I want to make this young couple feel comfortable somehow, especially Mary after this long journey. So I looked around the inn and I found a chair and I brought it out to Mary, and I was so happy to be able to give it to her. And I looked at it one last time before I handed it to her, and it was a broken chair. And Joseph took the chair quietly, found a piece of wood, and hammered in a new leg. And Mary was able to sit on this chair. It made me realize first that Joseph is a carpenter, so he can do such things, but also that I can't do everything on my own. I have to let God in. I have to let others help me. I think St. Ignatius chose this way of imagining ourselves in this scene with the Holy Family so we could get to know them, so we could be more familiar with the Holy Family. This year, it's probably not too hard to imagine their quiet, humble Christmas away from all their friends and family. That's life. But that's the life that Jesus chose to share with us. I would guess however we imagine us serving the Holy Family would say a lot about the gifts we've been given by God. That was God's plan the whole time. To enter the world as a little baby in a family like ours, to get to know us, so that we could become more and more like him. That's life.